Hi there, you're listening to Unnatural Selection, the show about newsy type stuff and things. My name is George.
My name is Tom.
And my name is Adam.
And with our powers combined, we are Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. Back for another week.
Back for another week. And what a week it has been. There's been so much news. I mean, there has been lots of news. We just haven't got a broad spectrum of it today, but we're going to get in depth. You know, it gives us a chance to really discuss things and really get down to the nitty gritty.
Adam's giving book report, but I haven't read the book vibes.
Yeah.
Moby Dick is about a portable penis that it was the best of times. It was the worst of times. The Tale of Two Cities. There are these two cities, right?
It's about, Moby Dick is about a DJ who claimed to date Natalie Portman once. What an asshole.
What a dick. So it's a news and politics podcast. We talk about things in the news that entertain and or dismay us in equal measure. And today we've got a news story that actually fits neither of those categories. It doesn't, well, I suppose it entertains us, but it does not dismay us. Top story, Alan Joyce has stood down this week as Qantas's chief executive officer after a week of turbulence.
I can't believe the ABC and other places didn't go with that. They went for the word tumultuous.
No, obviously turbulence.
Missed
opportunity.
Pun is right there.
It's right there.
No one loves puns more than journalists, and it was right there.
And
because Qantas is an airline.
You'll notice that the Batuta Advocate and other satirical newspapers, the Chaser, the Shovel, have all been making much hay out of the fact that Alan Joyce departed early, and Qantas as an airline has not been known for things departing early, so they've been making a lot of hay. It's just like ChatGPT come up with 50 airline leaving early jokes, and we're just going to take the best 3 or 4, and we're just going to run those headlines all day. So that's what my feeds looked like this week.
Because, of course, Alan Joyce was slated to retire in a couple of months, which I wasn't aware of. I thought he was still, ongoing forever and ever. Forever Alan Joyce.
1,000 years of Alan Joyce.
Which was not the case. And we did say last week, we're like, how long can he really...
Oh, no, I knew he was... So they announced it in May, I think it was, that he was retiring at the end of the year. In November, he'd be stepping down. And then all this business came out last week, which we reported on with the ACCC, saying, hey, you guys are selling flights that you had cancelled internally. What's up with that? The ACCC is going to investigate that. And Alan Joyce said, "Poos."
I was just like, well, I'm not sticking around to do it.
That sounds like a bunch of bullshit. So I'm on my way out anyway. Get nicked. And decided to leave early and has handed the control of the company. The chief financial officer role will go to Vanessa Hudson, who was previously the she was the chief financial officer, and she's now the chief executive officer, CEO. And she's the first female CEO in the airline's 103-year history. So that's good, I guess.
Yeah. Could you say that Alan Joyce here's another plane-related joke. He had a golden parachute because he has left with $24 million worth of payouts.
I mean, that's not a joke. It's just that's what they call that. It's a golden parachute. You're just naming the thing.
So, but it's related to planes. So he had a golden parachute.
Yeah, it is.
The flying Qantas plane into the sea. Right.
Just, as long as he found the parachute under his seat and it had a whistle and light for attention. And that he put it on himself before assisting anyone else. But,
that definitely sounds like Alan Joyce. So you'll notice that he's made over $100 million during his 15-year tenure as the CEO. Now, 15 years is a very long time to be a CEO. Generally, the sort of average tenure of a CEO is 4 to 5 years if you're doing well. This golden parachute that he's receiving on his way out, or is likely to receive, although because there have been some question marks over that. But So he's likely to get a $24 million golden parachute, golden handshake, golden shower.
I was waiting for that.
So so part of it is a cash bonus, and then some of it is stocks. So that's
it's a golden parachute that might accumulate in value.
Well, yeah, this is the thing. So these compensation packages with CEOs and chief executive, like executive officers of companies, large companies, typically have a cash bonus component. If you hit XYZ KPIs, revenue targets for the company, you unlock some cash. And then other component, which is like shares in the company. And then those shares will typically vest after a certain amount of time. So it's like you get $1 million in shares, for example, but the shares only get signed over to you if you are still at the company in 1, 2, 3, 5 years, right? So the idea is it's meant to be a longer term incentive to encourage tenure for high skilled people, right? But the thing is, like, when you're giving someone stock on their way out the door, they just be like, thanks, bro, and then turn around and sell it. And then they don't need to disclose that because they're no longer an executive officer of like, if you're an executive officer of a large company, a public company, and you buy or sell stock, that needs to be disclosed because investors go, oh, the CEO just dumped $10 million worth of stock in this company. Obviously, he doesn't think it's going to be going very well. I'm going to factor that into my decision-making about what I do with my stock, right? But if you're no longer an executive officer, if you're just a private stockholder, you can go, thanks for the stock, turn around, sell it, immediately get cash, and then no one needs to know anything about it. So I personally think like no CEO is worth $124 million, even if it is over 15 years. I just don't see, especially considering how Alan Joyce in particular, as we've talked about on the show, has done a fantastic job of just taking the dick to this company over his 15 years tenure. Really just hollowing it out from the inside. There was Tony Burke is introducing Labor Minister Tony Burke is introducing a piece of legislation that to do with private sort of like subcontractors and the benefits that they're able to receive or currently not entitled to receive that they would be entitled to receive under the new legislation. But it's like squarely aimed at Qantas because Qantas has been at the spear, the shithead, the point of the shithead spear when it comes to eroding labor rights here in this country. So for Alan Joyce to make off like a bandit after really, and this is not just me saying this, like the head of the union that Qantas deals with was also saying, that he's head of the Transport Workers Union, Michael Caine. So the news of Mr. Joyce's departure from Qantas was, quote, the first good decision the Qantas board has made for a very long time. Unquote. Mr. Caine said Mr. Joyce needs to have his millions of dollars worth of bonuses stripped immediately, which is something that the board could do, right? They have the discretion to sort of alter your compensation package after the fact, especially in lieu of this scandal with the ACCC coming after Qantas. Like they could turn around and say, yes, you hit your KPIs, but you brought the company into disrepute, therefore you don't get your millions of dollars. So they could do that if they wanted to, but of course, like any board, it's probably packed with his cronies who are happy to do his bidding and sign off on his big exit package. Quote, Alan Joyce is slipping into retirement 2 months early with a $24 million pay packet, leaving one of the biggest messes in corporate Australia's history in his wake. After finally receiving the public scrutiny he deserves for trashing one of Australia's most cherished companies, Alan Joyce is exiting with a $10 million bonus announced on Friday. He must be stripped of those bonuses immediately. So, I mean, I know the union is not likely to have an overly rosy view of a CEO, but that seems particularly aggressive.
That's very pointed.
Strident language, I think we would describe that as.
I think it's funny because like early in his tenure, I'm pretty sure he was credited with saving Qantas to some extent, maybe around the time of the GFC, if I'm not mistaken. So there is, I guess, he was well viewed
on the GFC 15 years ago.
Yeah, for a period of time because he seemed to turn around the company, which was making a loss back in the day. I guess the problem
has made a loss since. By the way, it's not been just like on an upward trajectory ever since then.
it did make $2.5 billion profit last year. But
once you subtract the $500 million, $570 million that they've just like pocketed from flights that they've, flight credits, quote unquote, that's just sitting on their balance sheet for no fucking reason.
For fun. I mean, the more I think about that sort of situation, the more I'm just like, did they, like, who's handling their website, and like, why did they not take down the ads? Is it just like Karen? Yeah, like, was Karen away? No, I keep using Karen as an example, but like, let's use a male name.
That's
Steve.
Not fair. That's not fair. Okay, her name was actually Carol, so
Carol,
totally different.
Was Steve just like on leave that week and then didn't update the website, or like what? How did they get to this point?
Are you saying was Steve on leave those 8 weeks?
Yeah, I mean, maybe Steve went to Europe and then no one was looking after the website. I don't know.
I don't know how Steve made it to Europe if his flight was fucking cancelled and he didn't know about it.
It just seems like a very like rookie, like
it's bananas. Like that's what we were talking about last week, that these situations of a flight being cancelled months in advance, but it's like 4 to 8 weeks before they stop selling tickets to the flight.
Doesn't make sense.
Not telling people who'd already bought the tickets until after it came off the website as well. Like, I mean, pure speculation on my part, but I agree, Adam. It does seem like, what? How did this happen? And clearly it seems like oh shit, they realize, take it down and tell everyone the flight's been cancelled. It somehow made it months before anyone thought, hey, have we taken that off the website?
I mean, you've got to wonder whether or not, we're assuming this is just an error and it's not genuine malice.
Are we assuming that? Is that the royal we we're using there, Adam?
Yeah, the royal we. But we're assuming this isn't malice. Like, maybe it is a result, partially, potentially, of, coming out of lockdown early 2022, where they just didn't have the staff there to really run the joint properly because they'd laid everyone off.
Who made the decision to lay everyone off? I sure hope they never find that guy and give him $24 million.
So it's, I mean, I know we do have a mutual friend that does speak quite highly of Alan Joyce. But I guess, sometimes I think when you are so...
Text me.
George, do you know who they're talking about?
No, it's not me.
Is it Adam?
I'll talk to you guys. No, I'll talk to you guys off air about it. But there is a friend of ours that...
We'll take that offline.
Has spoken about him positively. But I think it's probably also one of those things where it's like, the longer you do something, like when you become so ingrained in the fabric of the thing that you have set up and the methodology that you have pursued... that you can't just keep doing the same thing for 15 years. Like, at some point, you've got to change strategy. You've got to change with the times. And that's why CEOs come and go every 4 to 5 years, because businesses realize you can't just have the same one-trick pony go for that long, unless it's like a family business or family empire. But like, if it's a corporate company where there isn't some sort of family stake in it, where you can just change CEOs, then you should.
See, that sounds to me like, though, just on a general like corporate culture kind of thing, then all those CEOs are bad. I would feel like, what makes a good CEO? If you're advertising the job of be CEO of company, probably strategic flexibility and would be one of them.
Yeah,
like 100%. Who wants a one-trick pony? If it's all right, so your thing is that you come in and you do this specific thing, and they're like, cool, I've done that. Now we need something new. Well, I'm not that guy. So what other company needs someone to come in and do this specific thing?
And it's funny because the strategy
is donuts in the morning in every break room. That's my strategy. I'm the donut guy. That's what I do.
It's so funny though, because like, yes, there's so much of in the MBA, they're talking about, strategic and adaptability and industry 4.0. MBA, industry 4.0 and how to respond to, strategy and changing times. And so much of that is like really pushed at the MBA level. And yet when you do case studies of...
No one does it.
Of CEOs coming into organizations and turning things around and righting the ship, they all kind of more or less do the same things. And I think it's the sort of neoliberal era that we entered into around the late 70s, early 80s, where it's just like, okay, the game plan is, no matter what the circumstances, like try and fuck over the unions, hollow out, outsource, send to AI, send labor or manufacturing or anything that we can outsource to India or to China, whether it's customer service or manufacturing, or what component, what can we outsource the janitorial services? Can we outsource the pilots? Can we outsource the ground crews? Can we outsource the methodology is always hollow out the entire infrastructure for short-term profits at the expense of the long-term viability of the company. And that's why so many people talk about like late-stage capitalism being the phase that we're in at the moment. It's because we've gotten all the productivity gains that we're likely to get. All the call centers are in India now, or they're in the Philippines. You can't send any more. There are no more productivity gains to be had from further outsourcing. And now the outsourcing is actually, you're starting to see the cracks with things like a COVID or supply chain shocks and things like that. People are really starting to see the cracks of those systems that have been so thoroughly outsourced and distributed that they're like, actually, this doesn't really work for us that much anymore. And so what do we do? And they're talking about the big thing in, if you read Bloomberg and all these sort of like financial publications, they're talking about, de-risking from China, de-risking supply chains. Which means basically like reshoring jobs. It's like, well, if you don't want to have your supply chains completely at risk because they're distributed all across the world, then you need to have those resources here at home.
If you don't want a war in Ukraine to affect your oil, your olive oil supply, or I forget, what Ukraine. Was it olive oil?
No, it's
is
grain.
that a big thing over there? Grain?
Or just, the situation in Ukraine has disrupted like crude oil supplies and stuff as well. Natural gas and other
where am I getting cooking oil from? I forget. But if you don't want that to be affected by a war overseas,
if you don't want
to make that shit at home.
Yeah, if you don't want to have a war in Taiwan over computer chips, maybe start making some computer chips in the USA, which is what the Chips Act was
where
all
there
about.
Definitely won't be any wars breaking out ever.
No.
There won't ever be civil unrest in
Definitely
the US. Not. No, never. Not in a million years. I think it's funny that, you say that because, you're right. Like the concepts of try to do, let's do our business. Like, how do we keep doing everything we're doing, but cheaper seems to just be what every CEO does. And it's
they all have the exact same fucking strategy.
Yeah.
And that'll work. And that'll work for 8 quarters in a row, and you'll seem like a genius. This is what Jack Welch, if you go and listen to the Behind the Bastards episodes about Jack Welch, this is exactly what he did. And everyone thought the guy was a managerial genius, is still quoted in MBA textbooks today as the guy who is an absolute fucking business genius. But this is exactly what he did. He pioneered this approach of hollowing things out, outsourcing. GE used to be a company that made stuff. And by the time Jack Welch was done with it, it became basically a venture capital firm. No innovation was happening within the firm. They just specialized in buying and selling various companies for profit. That's what the business of GE became, is essentially becoming a venture capital firm. We're making a bet. We're going to buy this company, and we're going to buy it for 10, and we're going to sell it for 20. And so the whole sort of innovation improvement, machinery that was within GE, which GE was famous for, which made it one of the biggest companies in the world, ended up getting stripped out over the course of about 20 years. And I feel like the same thing has happened with Qantas, because no one's really interested in making long-term investments in customer service, in improving productivity, looking after staff, any of those things. It's just becoming about how do we make the numbers on the balance sheet look good for the stockholders.
Well, Qantas is going to have to. This is the big problem for Qantas, right? Is that they are going to have to replace most of their fleet in the next several years.
As in upgrade the planes.
Get rid of the planes and buy new ones, because they have got one of the oldest fleets in the world. That's not cheap.
Yeah.
No.
So that is what's known as CapEx, capital expenditure, and a large one.
So planes aren't cheap. And it's
ask Richard Branson, any idiot can buy a plane.
I mean, you could. You could argue that. Did we explain that last week? The Richard Branson thing. We did.
Yeah, that was
Refer to last episode, listeners, if you're interested. But yeah, I mean, maybe part of this methodology, this profit at all costs thing that I guess Alan Joyce has pursued over the last sort of 5 years, is because they know that's coming, and they are going to have to spend a shitload. They have to borrow a shitload to make that work. No one's really talking about it, but it has been mentioned a little bit in the news. But it won't happen tomorrow, but it is something that's on the horizon over the next sort of 5 to 10 years. And it's not going to be cheap.
The future of commercial aviation, it's always been since, I don't know, the 60s or 70s, it's always been a very competitive industry. It's hard to make a profit as an aviation company. But there's also
doing something really expensive that not rich people still need to be able to do.
Well, it's an integral part of the economy. People need to be able to travel and visit people, and the world kind of stops without commercial air travel. And yet, so much of the profitability of the company is based on factors that are largely beyond the airline's control, right? Like fuel prices are a massive input. And there were years where fuel prices were high and Qantas didn't make any money, and there were years when fuel prices were low, and Alan Joyce gets praised as a genius for turning a profit. It's like, well, you didn't really change any of the other functionings of the company. It's just your input costs got cheaper, and so that there was profit left over. Like,
you'll just take the free win.
It's a really difficult industry to do well in. And very competitive, and with all these sort of changes coming up, not just in terms of Qantas and their fleet, but also in terms of global warming and
emissions targets,
emissions targets. How to because presumably if there's carbon taxes and emission trading scheme type approaches that come into effect, as are probably going to have to over the next 10, 20 years, if we're going to hit these emissions targets, then who's on the chopping block first? I mean, there's no real electric alternative for commercial air travel as of yet. So I don't know. I think they're entering into a really challenging period. And it's and it's convenient that a woman's taking the wheel right as the plane hits a turbulent patch. It's very interesting to me that there's they've just gone, you know what'll be good. Let's throw a woman at it. Let's throw a woman into the turbine and see what happens.
I mean, she was the chief financial officer and all that sort of stuff. They haven't just picked out, chief financial officers are often sort of the chief of anything sort of in a corporation, are often maybe the next in line to be CEOs, especially when it's a sudden, well, I'm resigning, so the new person starts tomorrow. Rather than in 2 months, you start tomorrow.
Yeah, typically
that's a phone call to get. It's like, hey, Vanessa. Is Vanessa her name?
Yeah.
Hey, Vanessa, you want us 9 o'clock tomorrow?
How do you feel about starting tomorrow?
Yeah, that cool. I know you had leave booked in. You're CEO tomorrow.
It's all right. We can get those flights refunded for you.
They'll never expire.
So I'm aware of this effect called the glass cliff. And that's why I bring this up, because I don't know if I necessarily think that it's happened in this instance, but it is interesting to me that there have been a number of organizations that have faced a bunch of turmoil and then have had women appointed to the head of the organization to replace outgoing men. And this just seems like another in a long line of that. So obviously we've got, Vanessa Hudson replacing Alan Joyce at Qantas. We had, her name's just escaped me, Michelle Bullock.
The RBA.
Replacing Philip Lowe, the much loved Philip Lowe. Rest in peace. God rest his soul if ever it is discovered.
Philip Lowe is still with us. His career isn't, though.
So Michelle Bullock replacing Philip Lowe as RBA governor. And I noticed in the last election as well, there were lots of it's not an uncommon phenomenon to have women, Labor putting up women in seats that they know they have absolutely no chance of winning, and sort of using them as cannon fodder a little bit. So there's this article from Kelly Oakes, which we'll put in the show notes, called The Invisible Danger of the Glass Cliff, which talks about this phenomena where women are put into head of organization roles and what that sort of says about the culture of the company or the perceptions of the company or the way that people perceive gender as mattering. There's this idea in the literature that female-led companies don't perform as well as male-led companies. Like there have been meta-analyses that have been done. But then there are also other analyses that have said, yes, but women seem to be appointed to leadership roles when a company is in turmoil already, right? An organization is really suffering. Some man has made a hash of it, and then they go, "You don't want to be great for this, a woman."
And then they go, "Oh, you know what's?
Why is everything broken?
Like women can't lead companies. This company's terrible." It's like, yeah, but the company was terrible when you
was broken
put
when
me
they
in
got
here. So like, yeah, well, what do you say? Yeah. Are the Illuminati trying to, hurt the chances of women in positions of leadership by doing this kind of thing? Is it a secret cabal that is coordinating this? Or it's very.
I think it is just like it's. I mean, obviously, it's been happening for obviously the amount of female CEOs is still not as many as male CEOs, sort of across the industry.
There are not as many female CEOs in Australia's top 100 companies as there are guys named John.
Yeah.
They're like for reference.
But I would say that, over the last it feels like over the last 5-10 years that there is obviously an increase in it. Like it is going, number is going up. There is an increase. It feels like at least of females being appointed to CEO positions.
And we're seeing them in executive leadership and boards and that sort of stuff as well. Like, so it is increasing. But you're right. It's nowhere near parity.
But it's like it's increasing. So the concept of it's kind of both. I think there's one where it's like it is seen to be good if you're a company board to be appointing a woman because it means you're progressive.
Well,
and certainly,
and that's a double-edged sword because it makes you look progressive, which is good if you're caring about social causes. But what typically tends to happen is the market sees that and goes, well, they're more concerned about social causes than they are about returns to shareholders. So, go woke or go broke. I'm going to pull my money out of this woke corporation that wants a woman in charge of it. And so what happens is actually tends to have adverse impacts on the share price of said companies when they announce a woman.
Yes. The market being made up of primarily private schoolboy finance bros. They're not thrilled.
Was that a Freudian slip where you almost said fascists? Or?
I was about to say fashion bros.
Okay.
And then realized, no, that's not the word I'm looking for. Finance.
That wasn't a Freudian slip. That was a Freudian slide.
I certainly think it's good that there are women being appointed. I think
that's good, right?
By all accounts, they all seem to be very qualified. And why couldn't the woman do the man's job? But there is something, particularly when a company is in crisis. This is the thing. When it happens when a company is in crisis, it does look from the outside to be a bit cynical. Despite the candidate's quality, and Vanessa Hudson's been working at Qantas for over 20 years. By all accounts, would have probably been working very closely with Alan Joyce throughout this time, and backed his strategies on various things. So
it's a real phenomenon. It's like the University of Exeter did research that shows that women and people from ethnic minorities are more likely to be chosen to lead a company, sports team, or country when it is in crisis mode. Like that is not just a perception that we have. It is more likely to happen when an organization is on the fritz than when it's not, when things are more stable. And I suppose that speaks to a more like conservative liberal dichotomy, right? Is so you want change, you want progressive, you want a progressive, and then maybe that speaks to the that sort of effect that I noted earlier, where you go to a seat that Labor has no chance of winning an election, and there's like a woman of color representing the seat. It's like maybe that's cynical. Maybe they're trying to go, this is a symbol of change, or maybe it is emblematic of the electorate going, we want someone who is a symbol of change, who is different from the stuffy white guy who's likely occupying that role at present, right? So it's hard to tell how much of it's cause and effect, how much is chicken and egg. But I don't, like, my gut tells me I don't think women and minorities are worse at running companies than white guys. I think it really is a case of like, they're as inept as anyone else at running companies. The key is like, do they, are they being set up for success? I guess.
Which it's kind of hard to do that when the company's
flailing
in the shitter. They're doing a thing of like, this company's doing terribly. Like, it's that example we were talking about earlier, where if people then use these appointments and then the short-term success or more short-term performance of the business following their appointment being like, we'll see, and no, look at all these instances where women were appointed the leaders and the company wasn't doing very well. It's like, because it wasn't doing very well, and you put them in it. And whether that's an intentional thing of either, well, hey, men have been fucking up the world for thousands of years at this point, so maybe we need someone who's not a white man to do this. But on the other hand, is it the cynical thing of like, people keep saying we should be doing that, so let's do it, point at them and say they're failing because we've set them up to fail, and then they'll shut up about it. But, that's maybe a bit more QAnon conspiracy brain, someone controlling the world.
The UK is an interesting example. Like if you look at their prime ministers, so Theresa May is one of them. What was the other one? Liz Truss was another example. And of course, Margaret Thatcher. She came in at a time where there was huge upheaval in the UK and was a so-called stabilizing influence, even though she was,
not if you're a minor.
Depending who you are.
Liberalism. But like in terms of, the
not if
UK,
you're a minor or Argentina.
But it seems like, particularly for UK leadership, that they do pivot to women when they are in crisis. So that's an interesting comparison. You could say that that's a correlation. I wouldn't say there's
There's also another effect that's noted in this research, which talks about the kinds of crises that people gravitate, towards male or female leaders. And so like if it's a crisis about communication, then it says that, we're more likely to associate those qualities with a female leader. Whereas if it's a crisis about finances, we're more likely to associate those qualities with the male leader. And it's interesting that lines up with Qantas, right? Like Qantas is profitable, right? They don't have an issue with profitability right now. What they have is a crisis of image, a crisis of the soul of the company, right? So I think it's interesting that a woman's been put forward to
do we think
this
is part of like the next step of feminism potentially, where we need to start to dissuade those cliches that people lean towards? Like
how much of it is true and how much of it is perception? Like you could say that's just us, and how much of that is the board, Qantas's board, playing to the public's sexist perception. You know what I mean? Like how much of it is accurate? Men respond better to finances, women respond better to emotions. Is that true, or is that just like a vestigial, leftover, sexist, Jungian collective psychology thing that we have lying around still in our society? It's like actually that has no bearing on reality. I don't know, but
I wonder whether or not that has
are the ones to figure it out.
Us three guys are going to get to the bottom of it. Today's podcast brought to you by Manscaped. Manscaped, shave your nutsack, you fucking idiot.
This might be, not that it's a good segue, but the next story in our lineup. Do we have anything else to say on Qantas before we move on?
No, just it's a beloved company. I hope they do better with it than what's been happening in the last couple of years. I have to say, I'm happy to see the back of Alan Joyce.
There's that whole secret club that they have that just kind of came out a bit
this morning. There was a great article about the Chairman's Club.
Chairman's Lounge. The secret lounges that are in like most of the major domestic airports in Australia, like Sydney, Canberra, Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth.
So that was a really interesting article because it speaks more to, like, aside from the male-female dichotomy leadership thing that we've been talking about previous to this talks more about how Qantas has embedded itself with the rich and the powerful via this chairman's lounge.
Yeah.
And it was interesting that all federal so there was an expose written on it this morning, which I didn't post, but I did read because I found it so interesting. But every federal politician
is invited
in Australia is invited to join, and most of them, like according to the Senate committee hearing the other day, where everyone was like declaring their membership on it or not, was like 5 out of the 7 senators were a part of it. Lydia Thorpe famously posted she was fighting the power, posting a selfie from the elite chairman's lounge. On you, Lydia, fight the power.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like, and of course you would if you fucking travel all the time, because the way they were describing it was kind of funny. As I think I don't know if I talked about this on the show or not, but I definitely talked about the flight woes that my partner and I had recently getting to Melbourne. But on one of those occasions, we had to we got to the airport quite early. Because we were like, fuck, if they change our flight again, I want to fucking be here so I can talk to a person. But it means we had time, and we had, because we'd spent enough at fucking Coles to get enough little bullshit pleb point that we could go to the Virgin Lounge once. So we decided to use it. So yeah, did all that. There's the lovely fucking buffet thing, a wine station where you can just re-pour your own wine and then fuck off back to your chair, which was fun.
And that's the pleb version, Tom. Yeah. That's the one they give to anyone. Okay,
that's my point. Because reading about the Chairman's Lounge for Qantas was like no amount of frequent flyer points or money that you've spent on flights or whatever gets you access to here. They have to invite you. Although, of course, as the articles have pointed out, the people who they do invite often have done both, spent a lot of money and have a lot of frequent flyer points.
Yeah, you're a CEO of a company, you're a politician or someone related to a politician, or you're a celebrity, you're a famous person. Yeah. And part of the controversy this week is that it's emerged that Anthony Albanese's son, as well as Anthony Albanese, are members of this Chairman Lounge. So it's kind of like, it just kind of shows.
What does his son do?
I don't know. He's busy being a politician,
son of the Prime Minister, Adam. Like, what else does he have to do?
That's not good.
If I was him, a bunch of drugs, and he'd be taking the Hunter Biden route, having drugs and having a bunch of sex with random women, peddling influence.
Yeah. If I'm ever being discussed in Parliament, I want it to be for the photos of me being a cool dude. But the thing I found amazing about it was like, hearing about this lounge. And that, part of it is that if there's any changes to your flight, you don't have to be paying attention to the damn flight boards, because
someone
the staff know what your
flight
is, and they'll come over and they'll tell you about it. Or if you need something changed, you can talk to them and they'll handle it. It's all quiet. You barely know that the lounge is there. It's like someone described it as like behind a secret wall. The airport.
It's literally like the fucking Illuminati lounge. That's literally what it is.
Crazy Illuminati thing. But
Hillary Clinton can pull off unzip her skin suit and relax, really unfurl in the Qantas lounge.
Absolutely crazy. And but the article on the ABC this morning about it was talking to like anonymous, either current or former members of the Chairman's Lounge or something, and one of them was describing it being like, but the other lounges, like, they've been reduced to like do-it-yourself toasties and stuff, whilst the Chairman's Lounge has all this blah blah blah. And I'm like, that made me think of my time in the Virgin Lounge, where I was like, I can just ask this guy for like a can of fucking Four Pines Pale Ale and he hands it to me. Like, I don't have to buy it. What decadence? Well, this guy's like, that's poor people lounges. Like, have you heard of the Qantas Lounge? I'm like, I'll never be able to be this cool.
I'm sorry to say as well that Virgin recently the reason why everyone's now getting access to the Virgin Lounge is because they restructured their
point system.
Yeah, so basically the bottom tier all get one. Like, you would have had to have
everyone
had
gets a taste.
100,000 points.
I was like, we get it once. Thanks.
So basically, you wouldn't have been able to get it previously, but they restructured their thing to get everyone in, which is again, it's a marketing tool to get you to buy flights.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, that's the whole frequent flyer program, right?
So
I just thought that was funny that someone who's gone into the Chairman's Lounge is like, to be with the horde of people who are just making their own toasties in a buffet, those pieces of shit, whilst the rest of us are like, the lounge. Wow, that sounds free toasties. Nice and fancy. Otherwise, I have to fucking pay $12 for a bullshit ham and cheese croissant, and then also it's like stumble to my gate. Fucking hell!
What luxury! What luxury!
I could I could tell some stories about loyalty programs, but maybe let's wait until more time has passed before I do that.
Wait until the statute of limitations.
I don't know. It's not important. So the I don't know, that story was particularly interesting. Just because it shows the level of influence that Qantas has, and we were talking about that story last week of them. The Australian government knocking back
Qatar.
the Qatar back, knocking Qatar back, the Qatar Airlines for those additional 20 routes that they were wanting to run and add some additional competition to the domestic market here. And I don't know, it's all starting to sort of like form
that's a whole
larger
other way of influence, right?
A larger picture of a web of influence that not just Qantas, but that other large companies have within government. That may influence policy
Virgin,
that's not necessarily in the public interest, right?
Virgin mentioned their own one as well, just called The Club.
The Club.
Yeah, that sounds cool. I'm a member of The Club.
Indeed.
Sounds really shit. I like to say I'm part of The Club. I'd be like, you fucking loser. Like, what? Like, because they couldn't...
Just say the Illuminati. Make it real, Jesus.
Yeah, you need a cooler name than that.
So our next story, I'm going to move this along. Our next story is about a lady who, I guess, wanted to be part of the club and probably went about it the wrong way. And it's pretty crazy. We kind of have to go through it step by step to sort of give you the picture. But basically, a lady, it was a court case that sort of came out this week, and a sentencing hearing that went through for a lady by the name of Thiva Mangari Manaval.
Did you practice that before you hopped on? You did. Because you approached that with a zeal that I have not found previously to be forthcoming from you, Adam.
I sometimes, it's good to just practice because I'm usually terrible at pronunciations. Pronunciations.
It's not one of your strengths, let's put it that way.
No.
But ordering a meal.
Indeed. So she moved to Australia in 2015.
Who did?
And Thiva Mangari Manaval.
He's so good. Well done. I'm so impressed.
Okay, let's keep focus on the story, George.
Is it offensive that I'm so impressed with you right now? Well done.
It's very offensive. Anyway, so she moved to Australia in 2015. George has lost his shit.
Sorry.
And has been working hard, since then to try and, provide for her family, apply for a visa. She was moved
to Australia with the intention of, setting herself up, all that stuff, to then bring her children over and immigrate to Australia.
Yeah. She wanted to, bring her children of 3 out to join her. So she was working, like a lot of migrants, sort of pretty basic jobs. She was working in irrigation on a cotton farm. She was cleaning motels and eventually trained up to be a disability support worker and aged care worker. And then she had a boyfriend, and her boyfriend's name was Jatinder Singh. And he told her one day that he had won $10 million and he had deposited it into a bank account.
As one does.
Because they had a joint account together. And he's like, I won $10 million and transferred it to our account. And she was like, okay.
Cool. I have no further questions.
I have no further questions about this. And what had actually happened, and this is where it gets real weird. So Singh had placed a $100 deposit with the website crypto.com, but they refunded it because
what a name for a crypto website, crypto.com. Like, fucking hell. Well done, guys.
It's used by a lot of people.
They've got an arena.
Yeah. It's given the crypto boom, it's huge. But so they refunded it because there was a discrepancy in the account names that Singh had entered. Now,
wait, are you telling me a crypto website had some integrity that, this money that we've received from you, this $100, it doesn't pass our sniff test? A crypto website, are concerned about the legitimacy of the details you've given us? Us.
A crypto website.
Yes. Crypto.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Okay.
And this is where you know that, there are still some manual processes that happen with incoming and outgoing funds in these companies, because when they process the refund, a staff member must have been using like Control-C, Control-V or something, because rather than typing in...
Oh, no.
She typed in the account number into the amount box.
Oh, no.
Ended up being $10.4 million.
Mr. McAllister, please, I need some help. I think I made a mistake.
Here's your tackle, mister. Whoops! I dropped it in the fire. I'll get it out.
Yeah, it's as if the pimply guy who does all the menial jobs in The Simpsons accidentally transferred $10 million.
Yeah.
Transferred $10 million. Wow. So they thought, this is great. And they didn't. And this happened in...
I would also think it's great.
It doesn't actually say when it happened, but basically in January...
She was arrested in March 2022.
Yeah, it was January. I'm not sure when they realized they'd stuffed. I'm assuming they would have noticed pretty well straight away they stuffed up.
Yeah.
But they couldn't do much about it till January of this year, when the bank that was managing the whole thing contacted them and said, "Yeah, you guys have got $10.4 million. You need to return it." And so they did a bit. They did two separate transfers of $2 million to a bank account in Malaysia. Okay,
I moved about $4 million of it.
And then she
can you
received.
just move that much money? I guess that's what a wire transfer is, but like, I don't know, my bank's got like a $5,000 limit or whatever, in terms of like how much money you could just direct debit out.
Move it once.
Yeah, exactly.
With no scrutiny or like approval or
It's like, just move a cheeky $4 million over 2 days. Like, no worries.
And it's interesting because they don't necessarily say whether they transferred two transfers of $2 million to a bank account in Malaysia. It doesn't say actually whether it was them returning the funds or whether it was them.
I took that to mean like we are going to transfer that amount of money to a bank that is not onshore in Australia in order to get the money out of the country and get it out of legal jurisdiction. That's how I read that.
I think that's probably right. That's how I'd probably read it on a third reading. But then because they kept getting more messages from the bank.
Bro, I would have been on the first
to return the funds.
$10 million lands in my account. I am on the first flight out of the country. I don't even pack a bag, bro. I am out the fucking country. I don't wait for messages to come in. I don't wait. I transfer the whole amount. I get on a plane with $9 million strapped to me like Wolf of Wall Street, and I'm out the fucking country same day. Okay, people, I don't know, people are going to think I got yeeted up to the mothership. I don't care. I'm gone that day.
Well, it looks like their strategy was to plead ignorance. So they were like, the banks were messaging them being like, yo, you've got to return this money. She apparently told police she thought it was a scam. She went and spoke to a bank staffer and they went, yeah, it's probably a scam, allegedly.
Banks will rarely be emailing you about anything. So I guess it depends how they were trying to contact them.
But also, the fact is, they got the initial response from the bank saying return the funds, and then they went, "Oh, we better transfer it." Like, come on! Like you transferred the funds offshore after the bank emailed you, so like that was the impetus to transfer the money offshore.
It's so funny though because it was like only $4 million. Like they'll be good with $6 million. There's such a weird like hedging of the bet that you're gonna have to return this money. Like, oh, we'll only transfer $4 million. Like, what's a cheeky $4 million between friends? Sort of thing.
There's a limit of how much you can transfer.
I'm not greedy. I'm not greedy. Okay, I'll take 4. You guys can have the rest.
So she apparently told a bank staff member she thought it was a scam. Allegedly, the bank staff member agreed to it, which therefore is her justification.
Agreed that it sounded like a scam.
Yeah. But anyway, and then in March 2022. She was arrested because she was attempting to board a flight to Malaysia with a one-way ticket and $11,750 in cash.
I mean, like, relative to the amount of money we're talking about here, not a whole lot.
I think it might have been below the threshold of what you need to declare when you're going. I think it's like $10,000 in cash you can take into another country without having to declare it, sort of thing.
She's definitely got 11,000, so it's not. Yeah. It's definitely above that limit.
Well, yeah, depending on what the limit is, but yeah.
She was sentenced to 209 days in prison on Friday,
this past
which is also to do with the time she served prior to her bail from last October. So she's also got to complete 200 hours of community work and be subject to a curfew.
Does she have to give the money back? Or like, I presume that's part of the sentence is like you got to return all the money? Because like otherwise, if you still got that $4 million in Malaysia and you got to spend 209 days in prison and you just get out and then go to Malaysia and you've got $4 million, like I would make that trade. That's 9 months for $4 million. I think I'd do that if that was the option put before me. I assume she has to give all the money back, right?
Well, yeah, I'd assume so. Just Jatinder, is it Jatinder? Did I say that right? Mr. Singh, anyway. He is due to face a pre-sentence hearing next month for his part in the offending. So they're sort of dealing with them separately. Yeah, unless I don't know the full extent of the circumstances, unless they split up and she took 4 and he took 6 or something. I don't know.
I don't understand when it's like, if I accidentally transferred someone some money, and it's just like, well, you fucked up. You shouldn't have transferred it to the wrong account. Like that money's gone. But like as soon as it's a company that loses some money, they're like, whoa, Johnny Law's here to get involved. Hey, you can't just walk off with $10 million. It's like, well, they transferred it to me. I don't know. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I didn't steal it. I didn't take it at gunpoint. It just ended up in my account.
Yeah. It'd be like, fucking, I don't know. Yeah. If you just find in your backyard just a bag full of cash because, I don't know, some robbers ran past and just tossed it because, I don't know, they were going to be caught or something. And you're like, oh, well, I just legit found this. Why am I the one going to jail? Like, yeah, I mean, the system's so weird about money. Right?
It is, isn't it?
About a corporation's money. Your money is dispensable, okay? Is expendable. You can lose whatever money you like. The system doesn't give a fuck about you. Yeah, but as soon as a corporation's money is involved, all of a sudden the government finds its footing real fucking fast.
I thought there was like a finders keepers law to a certain extent.
That doesn't feel like a law.
No, like as in like.
You mean finders keepers under losers weepers see?
No, but like if you receive money, like or you find it, one of the two, and you declare it, you say, "I've got this money to the police," or to the bank. That's the step. And then no one claims it. Yeah, then you do get to keep that money, as far as I'm aware.
But that's the key part. Someone definitely came forward and claimed it. That's the difference.
I mean, this whole story sounds a bit like it doesn't. The information we have from, and admittedly, it's from Channel 9 News, so it's a pretty, it hasn't got a whole lot of detail. It doesn't really smell right because even if she did genuinely who believes their boyfriend when he's like, yeah, I just won 10 million, like, and then then the boyfriend's like, oh yeah, like.
And we're going to put it in your name.
And we're going to put it. I don't know. It just feels a bit.
That's a good boyfriend.
There's a bit of collusion there to a certain extent with her.
I probably just ruined my my Google profile and things if I am ever now in a situation such as this. But I Googled finders keepers law in Australia. And it came up with a lot of criminal defense lawyer blogs. So I don't know how we should sort of take this. But the key takeaway from this blog post from last year, in November 2022, she was granted bail when? October 2020? It's interesting how this is kind of lined up.
Yeah, I feel like she was sentenced. She was sentenced
this past week, but arrested in March last year and granted bail in October. Was what the article said.
Yeah.
That's why the 209 days she was just sentenced to, she's already served.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. Anyway, but so from criminaldefenselawyers.com.au, the key takeaway here is that finders keepers law is a defense to a steal or larceny offense. An accused person will be acquitted of stealing or larceny if he or she, after finding and keeping lost property, fails to take all reasonable steps that ought to have been taken to locate the owner. Failure to take those reasonable steps will amount to dishonesty being an essential element of the offence of larceny in New South Wales. So there we go. So there's a kind of finders keepers thing, but it's. I don't know if you could use it.
It's so funny though because it's like
what $10.4 million from? I found it.
I undertook all reasonable steps. I stood in the middle of the street and looked around to see if anyone had dropped $10 million, and I couldn't find it, so I just put it in my pocket. That's a a real thing that happened to me once, by the way. I was on Collins Street, just walking around busy street, and I saw $100 bill on the ground. I picked it up and I sort of looked around like, did someone just drop this? And
was it the Paris end of Collins Street?
Yeah, it was. and this mum came over to me and like snatched it out of my hand. She goes, "Oh, I dropped that. Oh, thank you." And I was like, "Did you?" Because it didn't seem like you were anywhere fucking near this when I picked this up. I guess I undertook all reasonable. Maybe I got robbed. Maybe I should have called the cops on that lady.
I mean, that's amazing. That's actually because oh god,
I regret it. I regret it every day since.
Life. Like for the rest of my life, I'd be like, wait a minute, was that the actual person who dropped it? And they were just like, oh my god, and they wanted to just avoid the confrontation with you.
She didn't have her wallet out or anything. It wasn't like she was looking around. Yeah. Like there was no one around.
Well, I mean, how do you drop $100 bill out of if you've got your wallet?
She was there with like her pram and her kids, and it's like I don't think this is your $100 bill, but you've taken it and you're walking away. So I guess I lost.
Yeah, because I should have
just grabbed it, kept walking. I don't know why I stopped and looked around like a mug.
Yeah. Because I guess like the $100 note's it's not like you found a wallet which will have someone's
No, it was just a loose bill.
Or something.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I've regrets. I've regrets every day about that $100. I think back on it often. It lives rent free in my head.
I love it. You have probably earned and spent
hundreds of times over.
Hundreds of times over in the years since, and just being like, oh, but an extra $100 that would have. Because at no point, it's the trajectory of my entire life.
At no point do you ever go like, man, I really couldn't use an extra $100 right now. At any point, you just be like,
Starfield just came out.
An extra
$100. I had that extra $100.
$100 I could buy Starfield. Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of regret and crazy, a Florida man was arrested after trying to cross the Atlantic Ocean in a hamster wheel.
We haven't had a good Florida man story in a while.
I know. It brought me much joy reading this. I was like, I remember Florida men. Like, I remember them existing. One tried to lead the United States for a period of time.
So one's trying to do that right now. Two, actually. Both Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis are from Florida. So,
Florida. Yeah. This gentleman that we're about to speak about, he has an interesting history. His name is Reza Baluchi. And he was arrested about 70 miles off TB Island in Georgia on the 26th of August. He is a 44-year-old marathon runner, and he refused to leave his vessel for 3 days. They had to tow him back to a port. He threatened to he'd kill himself, and he had a bomb. He didn't. And there was a lot of drama around that.
Escalated.
It did.
Wow.
So as the title of the article suggests, he was trying to cross the Atlantic Ocean if you can Google it, but basically it looks like a hamster wheel. On the edges of each wheel, it's got some floaties, some buoyant, like buoys.
And all those videos of people tumbling in giant clear inflatable balls. It reminds me of one of those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, hamster wheel.
Yeah. Just absolutely crazy. Wait. So I clearly didn't read into this as much as I should have. There was a 3-day standoff.
Yeah.
Where do you shit in this thing?
It's unclear.
It's unclear directly below him in the water where he is shitting.
Yeah, well, no, but if it's a hamster wheelie thing, wouldn't you take a shit where you're standing and then it's constantly just sliding in front of you as you're spinning the wheel, just this, depending how many days it takes to cross the Atlantic, were you planning just to have all these fucking centrifugal turds?
I imagine that there's a chute of some description. But I guess because it's a hand-wired, hand-jimmied fucking vessel, you're not allowed to, it's not considered to be seaworthy, and so that's why he got towed. No. But if he was doing it in a boat, then I guess it would have been fine. I don't know, it's a little bit funny.
Yeah. Well, this is where it gets a bit more interesting, because this guy has a history with the Coast Guard. Allegedly, he was doing the transatlantic voyage to raise money for the Coast Guard.
But it doesn't really work to raise money for the Coast Guard if you're then getting them to spend tens of thousands of dollars to get you to rescue you when you've broken the law. Like that seems to be like a zero-sum sort of game.
So part of the reason why they arrested him was that were trying to prepare for a major hurricane. So anyone off for a bit of fun in the ocean while a hurricane's coming in is probably a bad idea. And he is known to police, shall we say. In 2014, he had to be rescued in a similar contraption near St. Augustine. And then 2 years later, he again had to be rescued off the coast of Jupiter near Palm Beach in Florida. In 2021, he was arrested after being rescued while trying to ride from Florida to New York after drifting 30 miles south of his departure point. And I think we spoke about it on one or multiple of those. I was going to say,
this is sounding very familiar, yeah.
Yeah, I saw a photo of that wheel in the headline of the head of the article. It was like, I've seen this before. I think we talked about it.
Turns out time really is a flat circle, just like this little hamster wheel.
Mm-hmm. Time. This is the turd that keeps spinning around the wheel. Coming
it does
back.
Have the vibe of like, Bellucci's at it again, like the local cop trying to arrest the local drunk. Bellucci, we told you for the 15th.
God damn it, Bellucci! I've got the commissioner breathing down my neck. I need your gun and your badge, Bellucci.
Oh, Bellucci, not again. Just go home. I know you want to go to Europe. Just get on a plane.
Just get on a plane. I know you don't want to give money to Alan Joyce. I get it, bro. I totally get it. But you can't walk to Europe. I don't care how many times we've had this conversation. So many times, Bellucci.
Oh, yeah, he's an athlete, as they described here. I was looking up his Wikipedia page. Because, he has a Wikipedia page. But yeah, an Iranian athlete. So it's like, I want to run to Europe. I'm like, well, you can't do that. No, never say can't.
I mean, is this just the US crushing a man's dreams? Like, maybe we should just let him go and die.
If he was doing it on land, they'd make a movie about him starring Tom Hanks. You know,
just like, for the land of the free. Yeah, they're really impinging on his right to do something incredibly stupid.
But why would you not? Why, if you're Bellucci, why are you going to Europe when there's a hurricane on?
Yeah, check your. Well, in all fairness, I don't know how much you can, check your weather widget. Check the Bureau of Meteorology when you're sort of hundreds of miles out to sea. I don't know if your connectivity is that good.
I mean, he must have some sort of communication because he's been arrested multiple times in distress. I don't know if he was in distress. I think he actually was going fine. It says they intercepted him. So, I mean, he was 70 miles off the coast, which is pretty far.
That's a long way. That's some deep water.
Yeah, it's just crazy. I don't know. Do you reckon he'll try again? Do you reckon?
Yes.
He'll try again?
Yeah, I think if history has taught us anything, history will always tend to repeat itself, and that includes Reza Bellucci attempting to reach another country in a hamster wheel.
It's one of those things where like the guy's obviously like slightly obsessed, and everyone sort of looks at him and go, "Oh, this guy's mental," until he does it, and then he gets a movie, starring Gabriel Byrne. As the main, you know what I mean? Like it's crazy until he does it, and then all of a sudden it becomes a worldwide phenomenon, and then like the journey of 1,000 steps starts with a single,
So maybe the key is just to let him do it. Maybe we let him go or die.
Just let him get a book deal, and then he'll stop. Okay, like let him write his Lorenzo's Oil about never giving up. And then he'll get out of there, okay? Like, just let him have his moment, get a book deal, get an advance, and he'll be done.
Yeah, he was trying to run... In 2021, he was trying to run 1,000 miles north, and he ended up 30 miles south.
Man, I know that feeling, though. One step forward, 2 steps back. I really do, I understand that vibe a lot.
Wow.
Title of our podcast, 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
No, there would be the other.
No?
Yeah, anyway.
No, anyway, yeah.
On that note, we have been, we are, and we always will be Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. Make sure you follow us on all the bullshit social medias that have, do, or ever will exist at Unnatural Show. That's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Tumblr. Make sure you follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads at George Tsipos.
You can follow me on Twitter at Tom D. Heath.
You can follow me down to my garage where I'll be starting to make a contraption to walk across. We'll start with something small. We'll go Port Phillip Bay. It may well just be a paddleboard at this stage.
I don't mean to offend you, Adam, but I feel like you've got the same kind of like
crazy vibes.
Yeah, I don't know. What is the politically correct way of saying like the
Insane.
the same kind of like very specific mental illness that allows you to play 5,000 hours of Arma 3 and also maybe walk across the Atlantic. Like I feel like there's a little bit, you've got some of that.
I'm a content creator, George. It's just what I do.
You're saying the Venn diagram of like crazy schemes involving contraptions and dad games is a perfect
There's
circle.
a certain amount of obsessiveness that's required. Yeah, the Venn diagram crosses over a little bit there. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but
yeah. So I mean, yeah, I've got to go. Literally, I have to wrap this up because I have to go and play Arma now. No, it's late. It's not till 8:30, but that's fine.
Play Arma or code
Arma.
more missions for Arma? Because
The former. Yeah,
you're kind of learning a skill. So that's good. You're learning to code.
I mean, I've sort of got it. It's not useful for any other external applications.
No.
But it's fun.
on that note, we have. Oh no, I already did that. Okay, we did a podcast. Thanks for listening. Love you, faces. We'll see you next week. Bye.